This is Frank Quinn, Editorial Director of Supply Chain Management Review, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our webcast on overcoming order fulfillment challenges in manufacturing, high-tech, and retail. And today's webcast is being brought to us by Oracle and Capgemini. We appreciate their support. Let's take a look at the agenda, some of the points that we're going to be addressing today. First, we'll take a look at kind of a big picture view of some of the fulfillment challenges that companies in these three sectors are facing. And then we have results from a fairly comprehensive survey that was conducted recently on order fulfillment. I'll tell you a little more about that in just a few minutes. And then we'll examine the architecture for order orchestration, take a look at some best practices, and then also examine some of the case studies that our two panelists have put together. And then finally, we will have a Q&A at the end of our presentation, and we encourage everyone to stay tuned for the Q&A session, because typically a lot of interesting points come up that are really not fully addressed or even addressed at all in the formal presentation. So please stay tuned for that. Now, we're very pleased to have as our guest speakers Brad Kerr and Michael Pearcy. And first, let me introduce Brad. He's the Senior Director at Oracle Corporation, where he focuses on supply chain applications. He manages global solution architects and SCM product marketing teams that have deep knowledge of value chain planning and Fusion SCM applications. Brad has 20 years' experience in supply chain management software across a wide range of industries, including industrial manufacturing, high-tech, communications, retail and process manufacturing. And he began his career working alongside customers to develop custom SCM software before moving into package solutions. So it's a pleasure to have Brad with us. And joining Brad is Michael Pearcy, Senior Manager at Capgemini, where he's focused on order-to-cash business processes within the Oracle service line. His capability group focuses on Oracle Order Management suite of modules and on distributed order orchestration and related Fusion applications. Mike has over 15 years of consulting experience across a wide range of industries, including high-tech, software, communications, wholesale distribution, and state and local government. And prior to getting into the consulting business, Mike held financial management positions in the manufacturing environment. So, as you can see, we have two very accomplished speakers, and we look forward to their presentations. But before we get into that, I would like to give us a little background to sort of set the stage regarding the survey that we conducted, and a lot of the presentation today will be founded on some of the major findings of the survey. So the survey was sponsored by Oracle and Capgemini and was conducted by Peerless Research Group among readership of Supply Chain Management Review and Logistics Management. And Peerless Research Group, PRG, is our sister company. We work very closely with them on a whole variety of research projects. So given the audience that we sampled, we had a wide range of supply chain positions and levels that were represented. So, for example, we had logistics and transportation executives responding. We had warehousing and DC managers, procurement professionals, sourcing people, corporate management, and we had close to 600 folks were surveyed. So a very comprehensive survey in those three industry sectors I mentioned, and a really good level of expertise was represented there. Now, we're going to go into the findings a little deeper with Brad and Mike's presentation, but I'd like to just sort of give an overview of some of the big picture findings. And one thing was very clear: as the options for ordering goods and components increase, the order management systems of companies today are becoming much more complex, and order fulfillment is becoming much more complicated. And the toughest challenges in this environment center on keeping costs under control, on adhering to delivery schedules, regardless of the order channel used, and ultimately keeping customers satisfied. And again, those were sort of the big picture bottom line findings, and Brad and Mike are going to take us beyond those big picture numbers into some of the implications. And I would, again, like to emphasize that we will have a Q&A session at the end of the formal presentation. But also I'd like to point out that at any time during the presentation, you can send us a question. Just type it in the space that you see on your computer screen there, and we'll batch the questions and we'll get them to the right person. And within a few days, a short period of time, we'll get back to you with the response. So that's the introduction, and now let's get right to our presentation. And it's a real pleasure to turn it over to Brad Kerr.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate the nice introduction. And I'd just like to first start to say that we at Oracle are really excited to be part of this type of research. This is the type of information that we've been looking for a while and haven't been able to really get a good handle on it. So I'm excited to find some of the results of these things and try to put it into the context of what we have been seeing in the marketplace and being able to quantify some of the issues that we've seen with our customers. I think that you did a great job of summarizing the challenges that we saw out there, which was a proliferation of channels and basically being driven by our customers to expand those channels. On top of it, things that we're doing from a business perspective of acquisitions and trying to evolve our business models, and then trying to obviously keep a high level of customer satisfaction while we do all this. You know, one of the things that really came out on the survey to us is that the integration of these different business models and channels, as well as the automation of this, was a challenge. And yes, we were throwing people at the problem really to solve it, but really keeping the customer satisfaction to a high level was difficult in doing that. So the first result that we noticed right out of the gate was that 79% of companies have 3 or more order capture and 3 or more order fulfillment systems, right? So this is actually what's causing most of these problems that we just saw out there, is that when you have multiple systems in place, it's hard to get a single complete picture or a single view to our customer. So we sat back and we said, why is this? Why do we have these multiple systems, right? Haven't we, for the last 10 to 15 years or more, been trying to get our companies onto a single instance ERP? And at Oracle, right, obviously, right, we still are a very big proponent of getting people to single instance ERP, but for some reason, they're not getting there. We've been on this path for a while now, and we can't seem to figure out how to actually get our customers to be there. Well, what was interesting that came out of the study is that 50% of manufacturers have done an acquisition or been acquired in the last 3 years, and 45% of our customers in the last 12 months are demanding that we order through multiple channels. So what does that mean, right? This is the actual reason why we haven't been able to get to a single global instance. If we take the customer channels, right, this is kind of the piece that I call is out of our control. So 45% of our customers are demanding to order through multiple channels. Well, what does that really mean? That's the capture end of this problem. So they're forcing us out of our control to be able to capture from business methods and business process that they want. Well, the things that are kind of in our control and really affect the fulfillment is the acquisition. So we've got an extremely dynamic environment. And what's interesting about it is that these are the things, right, that make it difficult for ERP. So our business is evolving, and this ERP promise to be able to get everybody on a single instance, it can't keep pace with the changes that are happening in the marketplace. Well, so what ends up happening, right? What ends up happening is, I remember a customer I went to where they had grown through mergers and acquisitions, and they had basically 3 distinct channels that their customers ordered through. So what they required their customers to do is to put one purchase order through one channel, a second purchase order through the second channel, and a third purchase order through the third channel. And each of these things got fulfilled. We captured the order in one channel and got fulfilled through that system, and then we sent it back. Well, our customers said, hey, you're one company now. Why can't I just give you one purchase order? Why do I have to deal with 3 different salespeople in this process? And really, their expectation of what they wanted was unmatched by the technology that was underneath it. So it wasn't that we didn't want to provide that type of service; it's that the technology was the limitation. And so, that was the huge challenge that they were running into. Okay, so we're in the situation now where we're growing by mergers and acquisitions, and we're ordering through multiple channels. One of the industries that we realized was the most complex when it comes to ordering in different channels is retail. And one of the things that came out of the survey, which was very interesting, was that retailers maintain an average of 4 different selling channels that their customers actually go through. Now, on top of it, only 38% of them actually have the software to be able to manage these channels. Well, so what happens, right? Well, what happens is that we end up putting inventory inside of the supply chain to solve the problem. So we will actually go through, and one of the things that we realized is that retail customers inside of their DCs were reserving inventory and pegging it to a channel. So if I was coming through the website, I might have a specific set of inventory that was allocated to my website versus another set of inventory that might be allocated to my store replenishment. So this is actually increasing the cost inside the entire supply chain because I'm not actually taking advantage of all of the inventory inside of my supply chain. If I go to the next slide, we'll see, right, that this is true because we can take a look at the study that said that only 22% of these retailers were actually utilizing the inventory that was inside of their store. So think about that, right? So I'm pegging inventory to certain channels, no matter how my customer's ordering. And so what does that do? It teaches my customers to then go and order through multiple channels because I'm going to get a different answer from you based on the channels I go through. And in order to fix the problem, I just keep flooding the entire supply chain with more and more inventory. So this siloed inventory approach, right, is really raising our costs. I remember a customer I was at, right, and this kind of bleeds into the planning and to execution kind of function. And at this customer, right, they always talked about that inside the supply chain they could look across the network and they could see that, hey, I had 15 units of item number 1 at store A, but I had 0 at stores 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the question was, how do I utilize that inventory without actually increasing my transportation costs on top of it? So when we looked at the problem, we called it basically the melding of planning and execution. So in retail, right, the planning is usually not as complex. We might do some sort of replenishment planning, and we're trying to figure out the right safety stocks levels to use as we go through a fulfillment. But the place where this planning cycle meets an execution cycle is what we call order promising. Order promising is a quick response to taking into account all variables that have happened inside the supply chain and then giving back a date of when my customer can get it. What we don't want to do, and especially in a retail environment, is say that we don't have it. What we want to be able to say is that we've got it. We might not have it today, but we can get it to you on day number 2 or day number 3 and have a complete view of that supply chain all the way back to the vendors that we might be drop shipping from. Because we all know that, I think the study actually had that 80% of companies drop ship. I don't think that's that outstanding, right? I think we know that that's happening. But are we giving that type of information to our customers at the time that they're trying to place an order? I think in retail they have a concept called endless aisle, which is basically I want to make sure that if that customer walks into one of my stores or is ordering through one of my channels, that I make that sale because I'm giving them the best date that they can actually get out there to go and get this inventory. In other environments, we see the same sort of approach when we get into manufacturing, high-tech, automotive, those type of environments. And we can see, we start with some strategic planning cycle where we're looking at long-term 18, 24-month forecasts. We then go into some sort of tactical planning loop, and inside the tactical planning loop, we're looking at maybe postponing our inventory using postponement strategies and pooling strategies to reduce our inventory in the supply chain. We get down to an operation plan of the actual work orders, purchase orders, of what we're actually going to execute to. And then the link again from that planning cycle to an order's coming in, it's being priced, and we've configured it, it's being priced, and now we're having to promise it. That connection is our order promising engine. Well, the interesting thing that happened inside of this survey was that only a third of companies out there actually felt they were good about order promising. That's because basically what they're saying is that there's a disconnect between what we are doing from a planning perspective and what we're actually promising to our customers. What I call it is that there's basically planning happening on one side, but we have no way to enforce that plan at the time the order's taken because nobody's either adhering to the plan or things have changed so much that we're not communicating and getting good visibility back to our customers. The other interesting piece that came out of the study, right, was that if something goes wrong inside of the supply chain, what do we need to do to fix it? And only 50% thought that they had a good way of handling problems within the supply chain. Okay, so let's back up and take a look and try to understand what this actually means. Well, what this means is that we know that we can't perfectly plan. And we know that we're trying to get as close as we can to the consumer to do a better job of planning with them. But eventually, something might happen in the supply chain, that there's some sort of disruption. And so we've got a scarce set of inventory, a scarce set of supply that we have to then balance across that. Some people call this backlog management. I'm solving it after it's already happened. Only 50% think that they have the tools in order to be able to manage this, which is really poor. So this, and I remember being at a high-tech customer once who that's how they solved it, right, is that basically they're producing some product. That product had some sort of quality issue that's hard to know is going to happen up front in the process. And at the output, right, of it, we had less supply than we thought. So now we've got to do a balancing act of who's going to get the supply and how we're going to fulfill all the orders. And we're trying to do it in a way that we're allocating it in the most proper ways. That makes the least number of customers upset, and we're taking care of all of our customers. So that's kind of the backlog management. On the front end, we've done some sort of allocation process as well in the planning process, trying to collaborate on forecast, trying to offer programs that are farther out in the future, so that our customers actually trust us on the back end. Well, the issue is that when we're doing this, if we're not meeting our commitment, then our customers aren't going to trust us to actually do the collaboration up front in the process. And I think this is what's happening in high-tech, is that we've got 53% of high-tech companies collaborating with their partners on forecasts. To be honest, right, I think that number's low. I think that high-tech companies on average, because of this, should have about an 80% use of collaboration from a forecast perspective. Well, why do I think it's low? It's because basically 50% of the time we don't meet our commitment. So customers aren't trusting us in this process of collaborating to be able to actually fulfill on those commitments that we made. So we've got to get better at this. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to actually improve the efficiencies around what we're doing. So in today's environment, right, this is what we're finding is a multitude of problems. We have these siloed processes through channels. We've got monolithic app deployment, which means that one application is deployed through channel number one because they have a specific business process, and another one through another one. In order to fix the multiple capture from a front-end perspective to the multiple fulfillment on the tail end, we've created point-to-point integration. Well, that's great. That might solve our problem today, but then what happens when our business process actually changes? And how do we adjust to that? And we're slow to adjust to it. So we wrap things outside of our systems to do it. All of this is creating an inconsistent user experience. And that's creating basically dissatisfaction. So how do we normally solve this, right? Well, to solve the problem, we flood the supply chain with inventory. Because by doing that, then I can actually increase my actual fulfillment. But then obviously what's happening is I'm increasing my actual cost to do it. What I'm trying to do, right, is to be able to be flexible from a business process perspective, but then also be able to react to any of the increases or changing business processes that are happening. So a little bit of a history, right? How are companies trying to solve this type of problem today? What have we done, right, to solve it? And, to be honest, right, I'm probably part of this problem. So what we've done is when we looked at a top level, hey, you've got a multitude of capture systems that you're coming through, that we have order changes, cancellations, status updates all coming through. And we've got a large set of sourcing decisions of where we're going to get it, everywhere from not only internally I might have multiple ERP or fulfillment systems in the back end, but I might have third parties that I'm working with as well, and I need to incorporate them into my fulfillment. So what have we done in the past? Well, I think that there's three major things that we've looked at. Is I can try to solve this with ERP, I can try to build my own solutions out of middleware, or I can find a niche product in the marketplace that is trying to do this. Let's walk through each one of these. The first one with ERP. There's been two schools of thought that we've seen out there in ERP. One is to try to get to a single instance ERP. And, as we stated earlier, right, I think it's a great goal to get to, and I don't think that we should change from that goal. I think, though, that in order to get there, we've realized that to get to that nirvana, it's a lot more difficult. So there might be a better way that allows us to continue on that goal, but gives a little bit more to the flexibility that we need to adjust quicker to these changing business processes. The other thing is that ERP, right, has a very tight coupling. The process is integrated very tightly with the data, is integrated very tightly with financials. And that's kind of where they grew up. ERP started from a financial world, and then we built order management, procurement, all the transactional things on top of it. So any change, anything that we want to do inside of ERP usually has a financial impact to it. That makes taking on business processes that live a little bit outside of ERP very difficult. On top of it, master data becomes a challenge now as well. So how do we make sure that master data throughout all the different ERP environments are in sync? The other thing that we tried with ERP is to keep the separate instances of fulfillment on the back end. So I might have ERP system 1, 2, and 3 because that's how we're doing manufacturing. But then I'll wrap that with one single ERP system in order to basically communicate to all the ones downstream. Well, that was a good idea, right? We usually used our drop ship functionality within the ERP to try to do the communication. But, ERP really wasn't built for that. And what it missed was the set of business rules around all this integration, as well as kind of the ability to actually do the integration native within the application. Now, to be honest, right, Oracle actually wrote a white paper in 2004 on how you took our ERP system to try to do that. And we had customers that had actually gone out and implemented that, and they got it to work. But we went back and we asked them, and at the end of the process, they said, yeah, we got it to work, but it was difficult, and we wouldn't go through that type of process again. Well, so what are some of the other solutions? The next one is using middleware. So this is I'm going to build it myself. What ends up happening when we build it ourselves is we usually end up building a point-to-point integration because I need to get information from System 1 into System 2. And the middleware itself is not what we call order-aware. It doesn't have any concept of what an order is, how a shipment works, how the fulfillment should work. All it knows is that I've got data, I've got a business process, and I need to move data through this business process from system to system. So I've got to build all that intelligence into the middleware, which obviously increases on the implementation costs. I have a great example of working with a life science customer. And this is a company that grew through mergers and acquisitions. And what they had is they had one instance of an ERP solution on one side and a completely separate instance of an alternate brand ERP system on the other side. And they said, we need to get these two things to work together because we bought this company. We did the actual acquisition so we could have cross-channel selling happening. So we wanted to take, as phase one, 50 products out of ERP system number 2, and we wanted to cross-sell those 50 products into ERP system number 1. And they went through this path, and they said, let's just, we can do this in middleware. We'll take these 50 products. We'll make sure that they are available to order inside of our order capture solution, which is in ERP system number 1. We'll then have these priced over in ERP system 1. We'll do a call out to the pricing engine. We'll be able to take one purchase order in here, and if product 1 comes from ERP 1, then we'll just send it down. If it comes from ERP 2, it'll go into our middleware, and we'll send it over to ERP 2. And they built out this integration, and they did a very good job of it. Well, the only issue is that then they ran into is once a week after they had gone live with this pilot, the executives said, oh, my God, that's absolutely fantastic, right? This is exactly what we wanted to do. Now take these 500 products and cross-sell them, but not only from ERP System 1, but also from ERP System 2. And that's when the middleware broke down. And there was no way to make those changes quickly because it wasn't built on a rule system of how that happened. It was built on point-to-point integrations. Okay, so middleware, yes, we can always build anything we want ourselves, right? But there is a cost in doing that. And then the next thing that came out was a bunch of niche solutions. And I think what you'll find, right, is that the niche solutions popped up about, 10 to 15 years ago when we were starting off on this .com bubble. And people were ordering off the Internet, but then there was no way to get these orders that were taken on the Internet and push them back down into ERP. How are we actually going to execute on these orders? So a lot of warehousing solutions popped up to allow this to happen by taking an order and basically routing it into a back-end ERP solution for fulfillment. What you'll find is that they're kind of warehouse-centric, very warehouse-heavy, and you had to almost install a complete warehouse solution in order to do it. The other thing that we found in these is that they were built on a proprietary tool set. Well, 10 to 15 years ago, we didn't have the flexibility that we did today in the middleware, so they sort of had to build all that stuff out. And, to their acknowledgement, right, you have to say that they did a great job doing it. The other thing that we saw is that not only was this a proprietary tool set and not based on kind of open standards, but that when you opened up the hood and you had to actually configure some of the business rules, it wasn't really configuring of a business rule. I really needed now to code what that business rule was in this proprietary language. Take that coupled with all the legacy applications that are out there, right? And you run into some challenges and high implementation costs in rolling out a niche solution. So that begs the question, what is the answer today? And how do we actually solve this problem today? And with that, I'd love to turn it over to Mike from Capgemini to take you through the rest of the presentation.
Great. Thanks, Brad. Basically, what I want to go through is a purpose-built solution for handling these issues that Brad has been addressing previously in this presentation. Basically, what we consider looking at a solution that offers our clients the ability to orchestrate the order fulfillment process separately from the order capture systems, and looking at what we consider the components of a best-in-class order orchestration system. They would include processes to enrich the orders that come in from the order capture systems, basically to take those orders and transform them into orders that we can concentrate on the fulfillment as opposed to the accounting for those particular orders. We're looking for a system that offers very robust orchestration processes that allow us to plan the processes and to proactively identify any orders that are in jeopardy of not being fulfilled during the process. We're also looking for a very robust task service and interface layer. Most of these systems are integrating with a large number of legacy and third-party systems. And so what we need to have is a system that provides that service-oriented architecture to robustly integrate with multiple systems, both upstream order capture systems and downstream fulfillment systems. And finally, we're also looking for order promising capabilities. We need to be able to know how to commit to our customers and how to fulfill those customers through different channels. And overall, this system requires a high level of visibility into customer orders. It needs to be proactive and not reactive. We want to be able to identify orders that are running into fulfillment issues well in advance of those issues occurring. And we need to have a user interface that allows us to resolve those issues as they occur. What I want to go through right now is 3 case studies of existing programs that we have in flight around each of the 3 main industries that this survey addressed. That would be manufacturing, high technology, and retail. First of all, for manufacturers, basically what we've seen in the survey is a need for manufacturers to invest in a technology platform that enables these changes, enables them to decouple their order fulfillment processes from their order capture processes in order to embrace a multi-channel fulfillment model. We have an example of a leading aerospace manufacturer who we're doing this work for currently. In this customer's current system, every single order, whether a multi-hundreds of millions of dollar multi-year order or a small dollar one-off spares order, requires a manual touch. A primary objective of the new order orchestration system, in conjunction with parallel changes to its legacy system, is to eliminate these touches as much as possible. This customer wants to move their personnel from low-value data entry and order validation roles to high-value exception handling roles. Another issue with their current system is with their contract-based structure, much of their inventory and warehouses are siloed, and availability of inventory within these silos are strictly controlled by program entitlement. However, within the construct of their programs, there's an opportunity to share inventory between programs, and this customer is using global order promising in conjunction with the BPM system to provide greater visibility into potential available inventory and to provide a mechanism for users on one program to request available inventory from another program and to automatically handle the transfer and replenishment of this inventory as appropriate. Unlike many other manufacturers, the company has one primary order capture system. However, they do have multiple fulfillment systems and partners, and a major issue is that they lose visibility to their generally very long lead orders once they progress to the fulfillment process. Distributed order orchestration captures status updates from the fulfillment systems, and along with the business intelligence layer that's been built on top of DOO, provides end-to-end visibility to order status and proactive management of orders in jeopardy of not meeting the delivery targets. Finally, there are corporate-level mandates on the use of certain systems, and major benefit of DOO has been its ability to seamlessly integrate with these systems, whereas other systems, for instance, an end-to-end ERP solution, would not have been feasible, as that solution would generally require that these legacy systems be replaced by ERP's tightly integrated modules. So overall, the solution that we've implemented or in the process of implementing for this customer is Oracle's Fusion Distributed Order Orchestration in conjunction with its Global Order Promising and Fusion Product Hub, along with a BPM solution that overlays the entire solution in order to provide these results to this particular customer. Another area that we're concentrating in is automotive and high-tech companies. One of the major issues with these types of companies are their ability to allocate commitments to key customers and then to enforce these allocation commitments at the time of order execution. We currently have a project underway for a leading automotive tire manufacturer. As the survey noted, 50% of the high-tech companies do not meet allocation commitments. Allocation commitments are also a big part of automotive suppliers' businesses, and this is an example of how one tire manufacturer wanted to develop a system that allowed it to commit to and manage allocation commitments. Due to issues and costs related to change orders well into the fulfillment process, this company wanted to offer a program to its customers to encourage commitment well in advance of product availability, and to implement a process that would integrate its planning system, where its allocations were determined, its order capture systems, where customer commitments are captured, and its fulfillment systems, which needed to enforce these multiple commitments during fulfillment education. This was a brand new process that its current mainframe system could not support, and it was too expensive to simply throw people at it. So what we're implementing for this customer is a distributed order orchestration solution to serve as the hub that provides this integration between planning, order capture, and fulfillment, which provides the business process layer that organizes the allocation commitment process, and which provides visibility into the end-to-end processes, including proactive monitoring of customer compliance with their agreed-upon allocation commitments. The third area that we looked at, or we have an existing project underway, is in the retail space. One of the biggest issues for retailers are expanding into a a multi-channel fulfillment process and their ability to exploit their current in-store inventories as part of that fulfillment process. We have an existing project underway at a leading UK supermarket chain. As the survey noted, retailers maintain an average of 4 different types of selling channels. This is a case of a retailer who is falling behind its competition in regards to the channels it offered, specifically in its ability to offer an online presence to its customers and to provide a same-day delivery model. To accomplish this brick-and-mortar retailer acquired a firm operating with only an online presence in a completely different retail segment, with the objective of using the acquisition's online expertise to expand its grocery business online and to provide a brick-and-mortar presence for the newly acquired business, basically to merge these businesses in order to enable multi-channel fulfillment. This client is converting a number of big box stores into localized customer pickup centers to enable an online click-and-collect model with limited showrooms as brick-and-mortar locations for its new acquisition, and with local distribution centers to push inventory closer to fulfillment points to enable same-day delivery. We are assisting this client with the implementation of distributed order orchestration and global order promising to enable its new online ordering capability. Distributed order orchestration to coordinate the orders between order capture and its fulfillment locations, and global order promising to help balance inventory between its main distribution warehouses and its local fulfillment centers. Brad, back to you.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so just in summary, right, as we went over the survey and looked at what we think people need to be implementing in order to solve these problems, the thing that really stuck out was what in the past, and many, many years ago, we used to just call WSMO. And WSMO stood for, what is the status of my order? That is the number one question asked when customers call up. And then the other question my customers is, right, how do you know when there's a problem with the order, right? And unfortunately, the answer is normally when the customer calls. So what we're saying is that, yes, we need a single place to view all these order statuses, right? And we want to be proactive to the monitoring of anything that might go wrong on this problem, because we don't want our customers to call up and ask what the status of their order is, and then to be finding out that there's actually an issue with the order. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is that we needed the ability to be flexible in these business processes outside of what we were doing inside of our ERP or whatever our fulfillment system was. Now, you'll see in here it says consistent process definition and execution. What we mean by that is not that everybody's got to execute to the same process, because I don't believe that to be the case. But what I do think is that you need a system that can be the system of process that is handling all these processes and any nuances in the process, so it's not happening outside of the actual system. When things happen outside of the system, we have no way to be proactive and to monitor what's happening. And then from a back-end perspective, when something goes wrong, we need the ability to adjust to that. So that's the available to promise scenarios. We need to be able to run a what-if and say, what if I switch these orders around? What happens to my fulfillment? What happens to my margin? What happens to my fulfillment costs? How does that actually affect me on flipping orders from, flipping supply from one customer to another? All this is going to lead to better customer satisfaction. When we give a more accurate promise, when we're a single face, when we can respond to exceptions before they know they're exceptions, right, they're happier customers. On top of it, by including and optimizing our fulfillment priorities, right, we can then get a much better handle on margins and fulfillment costs. Instead of let's just expedite and put that on a plane and send it to the customer because we know we don't want them to be upset. And then at the lowest level, right, we believe that working with standards and not a proprietary tool set will actually lower your cost. It's much easier to go and find a Java programmer or somebody that knows HTML or XML or any of the other buzzwords that you want to do today. They come out of school knowing how to do that. And employing those people actually does lower your cost and gives you a more flexible architecture. So with that, I think that's a summarization of our features and benefits. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I'll turn it back over to Frank for questions and answers.
Very good. Thank you very much, Brad. Thank you, Mike. Great presentation. A lot of good information. Yeah, we do have some time for a few questions, and also like to remind the audience you can ask your own questions as well. Just type them in the box that you see on your screen and submit them, and then we'll get the appropriate panelists to answer those questions for you in a short period of time, within a day or two. So please take advantage of that. Brad, let me start it off with you. The order fulfillment challenges faced by the three industries that we studied, i.e. manufacturing, high-tech, and retail, are they mostly unique to them, or do they also apply to some degree to other business segments?
It's a good question, right? Because I know we kept our study very focused on these industries because we wanted to have a very focused study. But I am a firm believer that I've seen these challenges in any type of environment where we have multiple capture and multiple fulfillment solutions. And a couple industries that come to mind, right? So the first one is comms. And in comms, we see that they've moved more from a network provider into more of a retail model now. So their business has almost changed completely into how do I offer packaged solutions, product and service offerings from a retail perspective. And you can think of the challenges that they're having on actually opening up stores to sell handsets, to sell cable boxes, to sell phone service, and bundling all those things together. Now, traditionally, right, those systems on the back end are multiple systems from service offerings to product offerings that need to be coordinated together. So that's one place where you would want to have one centralized hub that could then go handle the fulfillment from that. Another one that we've seen is in media and entertainment, which is a lot more not physical goods, but it's online goods. So we can automate that entire process from taking an order over the web to then sending off and downloading, making available for download whatever the media or entertainment service is. And then on top of it, right, coupling that with services that are going along with it. And then the last one that I like to use as an example is the financial services. And most people say, well, why would you need this in financial services? Well, I think you'd be surprised at how complicated the business process is to run, and let's just take an example of, I have a 401k plan, which, in the United States is our retirement plan. And every year inside of that retirement plan, some funds are included and some funds are decommissioned, and we need to move money from the funds that are the new funds to from the decommissioned ones, and we need to move all that around. Well, there's a business process in place to talk to their customers about what they want to do from which funds they want to include inside of this retirement plan. And that's a very complicated business process that's actually pretty manual. On the back end, there's a bunch of legacy systems that are in place to go and manage this. So we can actually wrap a distributed order management module to handle even with that type of service fulfillment from that perspective. So I think those are kind of three different examples, but we could go into a lot of different industries and probably see similar type of examples.
Okay, very good. Thanks. Thank you, Brett. Mike, question for you, just going back to that, the order orchestration discussion and the slide that you had. Does the order orchestration that you talked about work only with Oracle solutions?
Frank, that's a good question. Actually, I get that a lot. Even though this is an Oracle Fusion product set, Fusion Distributed Order Orchestration, Fusion Global Order Promising, Fusion Product Hub, and Oracle BPM that we usually wrap everything around, actually it's designed to work with any third-party or legacy system. In fact, the three case studies that I had, only one of the three integrates with any other Oracle products at all. The other two integrate with no Oracle products, solely with third-party products or with legacy systems.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Organizational type question, Brad. I know you and Mike have had exposure, I'm sure, to many types of organizational structures in your work, and I'm wondering what's the best way to manage multiple order systems and the multiple fulfillment processes that you both discuss? Is it for example, strong centralized structure, or maybe one with centralized control with the decentralized execution? Is it fully decentralized? Is it some other variation of that?
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because I think that in the companies I've worked with, I've seen probably every single one of these varieties. And I don't know that one's better than the other. I think that based on the business problem that you're solving, sometimes the centralized control of the process and forcing business processes and people to be more standard makes sense. In other industries, it's been category-based, that we run different business processes based on the category of the products that we're selling. And then in others, right, it's channel-based, right, that based on this channel, I might run a different business process than another channel. And so I'm going to have channel managers. In each of those cases, I don't think I can say one's better than the other. It's whatever they wanted to do. What I can say, though, is that they've switched. I've seen companies that have started being centralized and moved to a channel program. I've seen companies that have started decentralized and moved to centralized, right? So the important thing that I saw is that we had a single place to control the system of process. And that's kind of how I like to divide it up. I like to say that there's a system of process which is different maybe than my system of record. So if we keep system of record down in the ERP and fulfillment systems, but we provide one place to manage these business processes based on a set of rules, then that one place will keep the system of records all in place, and we don't have to worry about the organization structure as much because we know that that's actually going to change. So one place to house the system of process with a set of business rules that drive what that process is.
Okay, very good. Well, let's wrap it up, Brad, with this question, which I'm sure a lot of the folks in the audience have. How can my company match demand with the constrained supply when it comes to meeting our allocation commitments?
Oh, that's a good one, right? So this is right. This is where we're looking for, right, the silver bullet. And I don't know if there's a silver bullet to solving this problem, but what I can say is that I think this is an extension of your sales and operations planning process. So if we took sales and operations planning, right, and we just said, how do we run our sales and operations planning process today, and what's missing from that? So we might generate some statistical forecast. We put that into some consensus building process where we're coming out with a single number that our company's running to, right? This is not, and I'm talking ideal, right? But let's get to a single number of what we think our unconstrained demand is, what the market's saying that we have. We need to take that, we need to run that through a supply planning tool to actually constrain it. As part of that supply planning process, we're probably going to do our first level of allocation, which I call cost-based allocation. I think the problem that we see today is that a lot of people try to push sales and marketing type of rules in the allocation into the supply planning tool. And these always seem to fail because you can't automate this entire process. So what I'm advocating is let's leave the cost-based allocation inside of supply planning. Let's do that over there, okay? We're going to come back with a now constrained demand, basically, right? It comes back out as demand matches supply and it's constrained. So whatever we asked for, we might not actually get. This then needs to be pushed back into the S&OP process to go through an allocation cycle. And this is where we want to do what I call sales and marketing allocation. This is where we want to line up and say, okay, well, we thought we were going to get 10,000 units in Germany, and we're not going to get 10,000 units in Germany, right? And from a cost perspective, the system said they're only going to give us 8,000. But we need to then be able to, at multiple levels of these hierarchies, be able to make sales and marketing decisions of how we want to allocate. And so we might start with a very high-level process where it's a centralized global organization determining how we're going to allocate from a country perspective. And then we'll send that down to the countries and give them the ability to do it. And as part of this process, we're going to give them tools. We're going to give them ABC classification, percentage-based, fair share, whatever is the tools they need to help. But they're going to make adjustments because, you know, I might be a rep in one region and I've got a brand new customer. And, you know, so be it. I'm going to make sure that that customer, their first order that they place with us doesn't get messed up, even though they might not be the best customer, because I don't want that customer's first experience with me to be bad. So there's all these decisions that happen outside of a set of rules that can be there, and we need a platform in order to do this. Okay, after we've done this, and we've gone back and forth, and we've got our commitment from our actual customers, and we've agreed or contracted on whatever these commitments are, we now need a way to enforce it. What I'm saying you need to do is take that allocation rules, load them into a promising engine that can then constrain based on that rule. So when an order comes in, we'll then test it against that allocation of what we've actually committed to, and we'll make sure that we're handling it. So, for example, if we've allocated 1,000 units to customer A, and customer A ends up ordering 1,200 units, within whatever time period that they said they were going to order, on the last 200 units, they won't get the date that we promised. And the engine automatically will split that part of the line out and then send that over for a backlog management. Hey, we're not saying you can't get it. We're just saying it's not part of the commitment that we made to you. And then we can add in all sorts of stealing rules and things of that nature. On the other end, if they committed to 1,000 units and they only order 800, we need a reporting mechanism that tells us and alerts us to the fact that we're 200 units behind. Hey, are you going to order the extra 200 units? Should we take the 200 units we have allocated to you and give them to somebody else, right? What's the penalty for not doing that with us? I think that's the piece of the process that's missing, is the enforcement of what's the output of sales and operations planning to what actually physically happens from an ordering perspective. And we normally don't do this at the time we take the order. We normally do this after the fact in more of a looking in the rearview mirror reactionary mode of what actually happened. So that would be my answer of how I think we can get a better way of handling this process.
Well, very good. Very comprehensive answer. Appreciate that. And that takes us to the end of our webcast. Again, thanks to our two main panelists, Brad Kerr of Oracle and Mike Pearcy of Capgemini. Those two companies are also our sponsors, so we appreciate their support as well. And most of all, I'd like to thank all the folks who tuned in today. We hope you found the information informative, instructive, and hope it helps you with your supply chain endeavors. And this is Frank Quinn signing off, hoping you'll join us in future webcasts as well.